Amara stands at the library counter, gripping her copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. The overhead lights make the room feel cold and exposed. Mrs. Whitlock, the librarian, sits behind her desk, her pearl necklace shining as she glances from Amara to the banned books list pinned behind her. The list is filled with titles by Black authors, each name crossed out in bold red ink, a quiet but powerful message about whose voices are not wanted here. Mrs. Whitlock's polished nails tap a slow rhythm on the desk as she examines Amara's book. She tells Amara, with a forced politeness, that the book is too advanced for her and suggests she try something from the children's section instead. Amara's grip on her book tightens, her jaw set, but she doesn't argue. She notices a white student nearby checking out the same book without question, a moment that quietly reveals the double standard. The room is filled with a tense quiet, every gesture and glance loaded with meaning. Amara's backpack, worn and patched, sits at her feet as she stands her ground. She calmly tells Mrs. Whitlock that her teacher assigned the book, but the librarian dismisses her again, her tone clipped and final. The sound of the clock ticking grows louder in Amara's ears, making the moment feel heavier. Around her, a mother pulls her child away, avoiding the scene, while other students pretend not to. Notice, the divide in the room is unspoken but obvious. Without saying another word, Amara turns and walks toward the exit. As she passes the shelves, her hand brushes against a hidden copy of Brown Girl Dreaming, tucked behind a row of untouched books. She pauses for a moment, then keeps moving, her quiet determination a spark in the dust-filled air. The library, meant to be a place of discovery, has become a battleground for whose stories are allowed to be told. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. The banned books list hangs behind the library desk, each title by a Black author crossed out with thick red lines. Names like Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, and Maya Angelou stand out, their erasure impossible to ignore. The list isn't just a set of rules, it's a barrier, a clear signal about which voices are unwelcome in this space. A white student steps, up to the counter, holding the same book Amara was denied. Mrs. Whitlock greets him with a bright smile and an approving nod, her tone warm and inviting as she checks out the book without hesitation. The student tosses the novel into his designer backpack and walks away, never noticing the tension that lingers in the air. Amara watches, her fists clenched at her sides, feeling the sting of being singled out. The difference in treatment is clear to everyone nearby, but no one speaks up. A teacher waiting in line glances at the list, then looks away, unwilling to challenge the system. The librarian's actions are routine, but the message is unmistakable. Some stories are considered valuable, while others are quietly pushed aside. Amara stands quietly, absorbing the moment. The red ink on the list feels like a warning, a reminder that her experiences and identity are not welcome here. The unspoken rules of the library are enforced not just through words, but through every gesture, every crossed-out name, and every approving smile given to someone else. The room is filled with an uneasy quiet, the weight of exclusion settling over everyone. As Amara leaves the counter, the list remains in the background, a silent wall that keeps certain stories out. The scene makes it clear that the fight for representation is not just about one book, but about the right to be seen and heard at all. Amara's backpack, patched with duct tape and worn from years of daily use, sits quietly beside her feet as she stands at the library counter. The faded fabric and frayed straps tell their own story, a life of making do, of holding on to what matters. Just inches away, Mrs. Whitlock's polished heels rest on the footrest, her posture upright, her pearl necklace gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The contrast between them is stark and undeniable. Inside Amara's backpack are treasures. A notebook filled with handwritten essays on Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, sticky notes marking favorite lines from Langston Hughes, and a well-loved library card. These are the tools of her quiet rebellion, proof of a hunger for stories that reflect her own world. Mrs. Whitlock's pearls, on the other hand, catch the light and cast small reflections on the desk, distorting Amara's face in their glossy surfaces. It's a subtle reminder of whose image is allowed to shine in this space, and whose is warped or overlooked. As Amara waits, Mrs. Whitlock glances down at the backpack, her lips pressed in a thin line. She doesn't comment, but her eyes linger, a silent judgment hanging in the air. Another librarian passes by, offering Mrs. Whitlock a quick, nervous smile before shuffling a stack of books to the back room. The divide in the room isn't just about money or status. It's about belonging, about who is seen and who is dismissed without a word. Amara shifts her weight, feeling the weight of her backpack and everything it represents. She stands a little taller, refusing to shrink. The pearls and the patched canvas sit side by side, neither moving, both symbols of a much deeper divide, one built on years of quiet exclusion and silent resistance. Mrs. Whitlock closes the book with a sharp snap, her expression unreadable. She looks Amara in the eye, her voice measured but cold. "Find something else," she says, as if the words are final, as if there's no room for discussion. The sound of the book shutting echoes across the counter, drawing a few glances from students nearby, but no one intervenes. Amara's jaw tightens, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. She doesn't argue or plead. She simply stands there, absorbing the sting of being dismissed. Her eyes drift to the children's section sign, shelves lined with stories about ponies, princesses, and pioneers, every cover featuring smiling white faces. She knows those stories by heart. She's read them all, searching for someone who looks like her and never finding it. A teacher waiting in line shifts uncomfortably, pretending to check her phone. Another student glances at Amara, then quickly looks away. The rejection is public, but the shame is forced to be private. Mrs. Whitlock straightens a pile of returned books, her movements precise, her attention already elsewhere. The message is clear. Amara's request doesn't matter here. As Amara turns to leave, her hand brushes against a dusty copy of Brown Girl Dreaming, wedged behind a row of untouched books. She pauses, fingers lingering on the spine, but she doesn't pull it out. Instead, she lets her hand fall, walking away with her head held high. The pain isn't just in Mrs. Whitlock's words. It's in the heavy quiet that follows, in the way everyone pretends not to notice. The library, meant to be a safe place for stories, has become a place where some voices are quietly pushed aside. Amara's silence isn't surrender, it's the start of something that will not be ignored. Amara steps out of the library, the heavy door closing behind her with a dull thud. She pauses on the steps, the afternoon sun warming her face. Her backpack feels heavier than usual, weighed down by more than just books. She kneels on the concrete, unzipping it slowly, and pulls out a battered notebook. The cover is creased, corners bent, pages filled with thoughts and questions she's never dared to say aloud. She opens to a blank page, her pencil hovering for a moment. The words come slowly at first, then flow with quiet certainty. Why do they get to decide whose stories matter? The question hangs on the page, bold and defiant, a promise to herself that this moment won't be forgotten. She glances at the photo tucked inside the notebook, a picture of her grandmother beneath a mango tree, book in hand, eyes bright with encouragement. The memory steadies her. A breeze stirs, flipping the page. Amara presses her palm flat, determined not to let her words be carried away. In the distance, a group of students laugh and shout, oblivious to the small act of rebellion unfolding on the library steps. She tucks the pencil behind her ear, closes the notebook, and stands up, her resolve firmer than before. With one last look at the library's brick walls, she slips the notebook back into her backpack. Her steps are steady as she walks away, the question she wrote echoing in her mind. The promise in pencil is more than just words. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where her voice will not be erased. Amara sits cross-legged on her bedroom floor, notebook open in her lap. Her fingers trace the faded photograph of her grandmother, captured years ago beneath a sprawling mango tree in Nigeria. The woman's hands, rough from years of work, gently guide a young Amara through the pages of Things Fall Apart. Stories are weapons, baby, her grandmother used to say, voice low and steady. Not for hurting, but for surviving. The memory is vivid, sunlight filtering through broad leaves, the scent of earth and fruit, the soft sound of her grandmother turning each page. Amara remembers the way those words felt. Powerful, protective, like armor she could carry anywhere. In the quiet of her room she repeats them under her breath, letting the strength of that legacy settle in her chest. She glances at her notebook, the question from earlier staring back at her. Why do they get to decide whose stories matter? The answer isn't simple, but her grandmother's lesson is clear. Stories have always been more than entertainment. They are a way to claim space, to be seen, to fight back against being erased. Outside, the world moves on, but inside, Amara draws from the memory of that mango tree. She writes another line in her notebook. If they won't let me read my story here, I'll write it myself. The act feels small, but it's a seed, one that will grow, just as her grandmother promised. Amara closes her notebook, a quiet determination in her eyes. The library's rejection stings, but her grandmother's words remind her that every story told is a victory. She stands, ready to carry that legacy forward, knowing that her voice, like the roots of the mango tree, will find a way to endure. In the quiet back office of the library, Mrs. Whitlock unlocks a desk drawer that sticks halfway before sliding open with a groan. Inside are stacks of old donation forms, yellowed with age, some edges curling, others marked with neat, looping handwriting. She flips through them quickly, her face unreadable. Each form lists a book title. Between the World and Me, The Hate You Give, Beloved, names that never made it to the shelves. Next to each title, in Mrs. Whitlock's careful script, is a single word, inappropriate. She pauses on a form dated 1998, Toni Morrison's Beloved, the rejection circled twice in red. Her hand hesitates, thumb tracing the ink, but she doesn't linger. She shuffles the papers back into a neat pile, closes the drawer, and locks it again. The sound of the key turning is sharp in the stillness. In the hallway, a young librarian named Ms. Patel passes by, arms full of new arrivals. She glances at the closed door, eyebrows knitting together for a moment, but says nothing. The air in the office feels heavy, as if the drawer's contents press against the walls, demanding to be seen. Mrs. Whitlock straightens her skirt and smooths her hair, her expression returning to its usual calm. She steps out into the main room, greeting a patron with a practiced smile, the drawer's secret tucked safely away. But the weight of those rejected stories lingers, a quiet accusation in every corner of the library. Amara, unaware of the hidden drawer, walks past the office, notebook in hand. The distance between what's visible and what's buried is measured in decades, not steps. The erasure isn't just personal, it's institutional, woven into the fabric of the place. The checkout line moves slowly as Amara waits her turn, notebook clutched tightly to her chest. Ahead of her, a white teen steps up to the counter, holding a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, the same book Amara was told she couldn't have. Mrs. Whitlock's demeanor shifts instantly. She beams at the boy, her voice warm and encouraging. "Classic choice," she says, scanning the book and sliding it across the counter without a second thought. The boy grins, tossing the novel into his designer backpack. He doesn't notice Amara, or the way Mrs. Whitlock's smile fades as she looks past him to the next in line. Amara's fists curl at her sides, her knuckles pale. She feels the difference in treatment like a cold draft, invisible but undeniable. A teacher in line behind Amara glances at the scene, her lips pressed together. She looks at the banned books list, then at Amara, but she doesn't speak up. Instead, she shifts her weight, pretending to check her phone, eyes darting away from the quiet injustice unfolding in front of her. Mrs. Whitlock's attention returns to Amara, her tone flat and businesslike. "Do you need something else?" she asks, as if nothing unusual has happened. The unspoken message is clear. Some readers are welcome, others are merely tolerated, if at all. As Amara steps forward, the room feels smaller, the air thicker. The checkout line is more than a place to borrow books. It's a stage where privilege is handed out with a smile, and exclusion is delivered in the space between words. Amara collects herself, refusing to shrink, her resolve hardening with every small act of dismissal she witnesses. Amara browses the shelves, her fingers trailing across the spines of books that rarely leave their place. She pauses at a copy of Brown Girl Dreaming, its cover slightly bent, wedged behind a row of glossy, untouched titles. She pulls it free, flipping through the pages, searching for something familiar. Halfway through, a slip of paper falls out, landing softly at her feet. She kneels to pick it up, unfolding the crumpled note with care. The handwriting is neat but hurried, the ink smudged in places. "They said my stories didn't belong here. Maybe yours will?" the message reads, dated 2010. Amara's breath catches. She glances around, but no one seems to notice her discovery. The note feels like a secret passed down, a quiet plea from someone who fought the same battle years before. She tucks the note into her journal, pressing it between the pages as if to protect it. The words echo in her mind, mingling with her grandmother's lessons and her own determination. This hidden message becomes her compass, a reminder that she's not alone, that others have faced the same walls and dared to leave a mark. As she stands, a younger student walks by, glancing curiously at the book in Amara's hands. Amara offers a small, reassuring nod, silently inviting her to take a look. The moment is brief but powerful, a thread of connection, a hint that change can begin with something as small as a note tucked in a borrowed book. The library remains quiet, but for Amara, the silence is different now. It's not just emptiness. It's a space waiting to be filled with voices that refuse to disappear. At home that evening, Amara sits on a low stool while her mother gently parts her hair, preparing to braid it for the night. The room is quiet except for the soft pull of hair and the faint hum of a radio in the background. Amara's notebook rests on her lap, the torn note from the library tucked safely inside. Her mother's hands move with practiced care, but tonight they tremble just a little. "Not every hill is worth climbing, Amara," her mother says quietly, voice thick with worry. "Sometimes it's safer to let things go." Amara looks at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes steady, her jaw set. "But what if this one is?" she replies, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother pauses, the comb caught mid-strand. She meets Amara's gaze in the mirror, searching for a sign of doubt, but finds only resolve. "You're so much like your grandmother," she murmurs, half proud, half afraid. She never backed down either. It cost her plenty. Amara's fingers tighten around her notebook. "I don't want to just let it go," she says. "If I do, nothing changes." Her mother sighs, finishing the last braid with a gentle tug, then rests her hands on Amara's shoulders. The weight of her worry is clear, but so is her love. "Just promise me you'll be careful," her mother says, pressing a kiss to the top of Amara's head. The world doesn't always forgive girls who speak too loudly. Amara nods, understanding the risk but unwilling to shrink. The quiet in the room is heavy, but it's filled with something new. Courage, passed down from one generation to the next. Late at night, Amara sits at her small desk, the glow of a single lamp casting long shadows across her room. Her notebook is open to a fresh page, the torn note from the library pressed flat beneath her hand. She grips her pencil tightly, the wood creaking as she begins to write. Her first lines come out shaky. "Why are only some voices allowed?" She pauses, staring at the words, frustration building. She presses harder, the pencil tip snapping with a sharp crack. Without hesitation, she grabs another and keeps going. The words pouring out faster now. Anger, hurt, and hope tangled together on the page. She writes about the banned books list, about the way Mrs. Whitlock dismissed her, about the stories she's never seen on the shelves. She writes about her grandmother's lessons, her mother's warnings, and the note she found hidden in Brown Girl Dreaming. Each sentence is a challenge, a demand to be heard. The room is silent except for the scratch of pencil against paper, and the occasional sound of Amara tearing out a page and starting over. Her desk is soon covered in crumpled drafts, but she refuses to stop. The act of writing becomes a battle, every word a small victory against the feeling of being pushed aside. As dawn approaches, Amara looks at the finished draft, her hand aching but her spirit lighter. She reads it aloud, her voice steady, the words ringing with conviction. She knows this essay is more than just an assignment. It's her way of fighting back, of making sure her story and the stories of others like her will not be erased. Marcus Lee, the local journalist, sits hunched over his cluttered desk, sorting through a pile of student essays for the community newsletter. He's tired, his coffee cold, but something about Amara's handwriting catches his eye. He reads the first lines, eyebrows lifting as he scans her words. Raw, urgent, and honest in a way that can't be ignored. He leans back, recalling his own high school years, the sting of having a poem called Too Angry by a teacher who never understood him. He flips through Amara's pages, his expression shifting from curiosity to admiration. This is what people need to hear, he mutters, reaching for his phone. Marcus snaps a photo of a paragraph, Amara's question about whose voices are allowed, and drafts a tweet, a local student's essay on banned books and belonging. Read this. Let her read. He hesitates, thumb hovering over the post button, then remembers the rejection letters he once collected in a shoebox. He hits send. Within hours, notifications flood his screen. The tweet is shared by teachers, parents, even a city council member. The hashtag trends by morning, and Marcus's inbox fills with requests for interviews. He sits back, a small smile breaking through his fatigue, knowing he's helped spark something bigger than a single story. Across town, Amara wakes to dozens of messages, friends, classmates, strangers, telling her she's brave, that her words matter. Mrs. Whitlock, meanwhile, arrives at the library to find her inbox overflowing with questions she can't easily dismiss. The quiet act of sharing an essay has become a rallying cry, a spark lighting up conversations in homes, schools, and city offices. Amara's words are no longer just her own. They belong to everyone ready to listen. The library's back office is dim, the hum of a shredder filling the air with a mechanical rhythm. Mrs. Whitlock stands over the machine, feeding in a stack of angry emails, letters from parents, authors, and readers demanding change. The paper slips through, torn to confetti, each shred a silent dismissal. Her hands tremble slightly, betraying the calm she tries to maintain. A board member's call breaks the monotony. Board member, voice tense. We're getting press inquiries. This is escalating. Mrs. Whitlock forces a sharp laugh, the sound brittle and hollow. Mrs. Whitlock, dismissive. They're overreacting. It's just a few complaints. The shredder jams, a harsh grind cutting through the room's stillness. She pulls the paper free, her fingers fumbling. The machine's refusal feels like a warning. A junior librarian nearby watches, her eyes wide, with unease. She bites her lip, glancing at the growing pile of shredded outrage. The weight of the moment presses down, the usual routine cracking under pressure. Mrs. Whitlock straightens, smoothing her skirt, but the tension lingers. The camera lingers on the shredded papers, a visual metaphor for the ignored voices now demanding to be heard. The scene closes on Mrs. Whitlock's face, a tight smile faltering as the room fills with the unspoken truth. The system's walls are beginning to crumble. The library's quiet is broken by the buzz of phones and the glow of screens. Teens gather in clusters, filming TikTok duets with lines from Amara's essay. Laughter and applause ripple through the aisles as more students join in, their voices blending together, repeating her words with pride and conviction. Teachers in the staff lounge debate the essay, some reading passages aloud, others shaking their heads in disbelief at the backlash. A few nod in agreement, sharing stories of their own struggles to bring diverse books into classrooms. The conversation grows, spilling into emails and staff meetings. A bookstore downtown sets up a display of banned titles, each book sporting a sticker. Leather-read, Mrs. Whitlock stands at the circulation desk, watching as her carefully curated, suitable list is replaced by a new chorus she can't control. A parent approaches, quietly asking where to find the books from the trending hashtag. Mrs. Whitlock's answer is clipped, her jaw tight, but the parent moves on, undeterred, searching the shelves for stories once hidden. The library's atmosphere shifts. Whispers turn to open discussions. Students recommend books to each other, and the old rules feel suddenly outdated. The hashtag spreads beyond the building, lighting up social media feeds across the city. Amara's words are everywhere, impossible to ignore. As the day ends, Mrs. Whitlock sits alone at her desk, the hum of conversation and the ping of notifications filling the space around her. The system she once controlled is slipping away, replaced by a movement that grows louder with every post, every shared story, every voice that refuses to be quiet. A news van pulls up outside the library, its logo bright against the morning sun. Reporters step out, cameras and microphones in hand, drawing curious glances from students and staff. Inside, Mrs. Whitlock adjusts her pearl necklace, her smile stretched thin as she prepares for questions she can't avoid. The reporter approaches the desk, flipping open a notepad. "Can you explain why certain books are restricted here?" he asks, his tone polite but pointed. Mrs. Whitlock's eyes flick to the shelves, then back to the camera. "It's complex," she replies, her voice wavering just enough to betray her discomfort. She tries to regain control, offering practiced lines about guidelines and community standards, but the words ring hollow. Behind her, Amara quietly reshelves books, her back straight, movements deliberate. The camera catches their reflection in the glass, Mrs. Whitlock's posture tense, Amara's calm and steady. A teacher lingers nearby, arms crossed, watching the exchange with a mix of hope and skepticism. The reporter presses on, asking about the recent surge in attention and the leather-read movement. Mrs. Whitlock hesitates, glancing at the growing crowd of students watching from a distance. "We're reviewing our policies," she finally says, but the answer feels empty. As the interview wraps up, the reporter thanks Mrs. Whitlock and turns to Amara, offering a quiet nod of respect. The library, once a place of quiet control, is now a stage for public scrutiny and change. The uninvited guest has made it clear the story is no longer just local, and the questions won't be going away. The school hallway is dimly lit, lockers lining the walls like silent witnesses. Amara stands before her locker, the weight of the day pressing down. Her fingers trace the jagged letters scrawled across a note pinned to the door. "Know your place." The words sting, sharp and deliberate. She pulls the note down carefully, folding it and slipping it into her journal. The camera lingers on her face, eyes steady, lips pressed tight. Around her, students pass by, some casting furtive glances, others pretending not to see. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken tension. That night, in the quiet of her room, Amara sits at her desk, the note resting beside her open journal. She picks up her pencil, hesitates, then writes, "My place is everywhere." The words are a quiet defiance, a refusal to be silenced. Her mother's voice drifts from the kitchen, soft and concerned. "Be careful, Amara. Not everyone is ready to listen." Amara looks up, nods, then returns to her writing. The camera pulls back, showing the small room bathed in the glow of a single lamp. The note, meant to intimidate, becomes fuel for her resolve. The scene closes on the journal's open page, the words glowing softly. A promise and a challenge. The fight is far from over, but Amara's voice will not be buried. The library boardroom. is tense. Fluorescent lights flickering overhead as members scroll through overflowing inboxes. Parents, authors, and even local officials have sent messages, each subject line more urgent than the last. A board member sighs, rubbing his temples, the laptop screen reflecting the chaos of public outrage. A senior member clears her throat, voice low but firm. We can't brush this aside. People are demanding answers. She glances at Mrs. Whitlock, seated at the end of the table, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Mrs. Whitlock's gaze drops to the table, her composure slipping, as the weight of scrutiny grows. A younger librarian, usually silent, speaks up for the first time. Maybe it's time we listen. The world's watching. Her words hang in the air, met with a mix of nods and uneasy silence. The old guard shifts in their seats, some defensive, others quietly considering change. The board chair taps a gavel, his voice breaking the tension. Emergency meeting. Monday morning. We address this publicly. The decision lands with finality, a signal that the era of quiet dismissal is ending. As the meeting adjourns, Mrs. Whitlock's pearl necklace snaps, beads scattering across the polished floor. She bends to gather them, hands trembling, but the others have already turned away, focused on the future. The sound of beads rolling echoes through the emptying room, a symbol of authority undone. The boardroom empties, but the unresolved questions linger. For the first time, the system is forced to confront the truth it tried to bury. Change is no longer a distant threat, it's at the door, demanding to be let in. The backstage area buzzes with quiet energy. Amara stands before the mirror, adjusting the cobalt blue dress that shimmers under the harsh stage lights. Her fingers tremble slightly as they smooth the fabric, the weight of the moment settling deep in her chest. A photo of her grandmother, worn and creased, is paperclipped to her speech notes, fluttering with each breath. Her scuffed sneakers peek out from beneath the hem, a subtle rebellion against the polished world she's about to enter. A stagehand leans in, whispering, "You're on in 30 seconds." Amara nods, taking a deep breath, steadying herself. The room feels heavy with anticipation, the hum of distant voices and the rustle of papers blending into a low murmur. Amara's eyes flicker to the photo again, the memory of her grandmother's, steady hands guiding hers through stories of resilience and survival. She exhales slowly, the cobalt dress no longer just fabric but a banner of quiet strength. The backstage tremors are not just nerves, they are the pulse of a young girl ready to claim her space, to speak truths long silenced. As the stage manager calls her name, Amara steps forward, the light catching the shimmer of the dress and the resolve in her eyes. The weight of the dress is nothing compared to the weight of the stories she carries. The front row is a study in contrasts. Mrs. Whitlock sits rigidly, her pearl necklace tight around her neck, each bead catching the stage, light like a fragile chain. Her hands clutch a small leather-bound purse, knuckles whitening with tension. The camera pans down to her polished pumps, planted firmly on the floor, a symbol of the old order. Across the aisle, Amara stands on stage, her cobalt blue dress shimmering softly under the spotlight. Her scuffed sneakers peek out from beneath, the hem, grounding her in quiet defiance. The audience's murmurs fade as she takes a deep breath, eyes steady and voice calm. Mrs. Whitlock's gaze flickers repeatedly to Amara, a subtle curl of her lips betraying a forced smile. Her posture stiffens, the pearls seeming to constrict tighter with each passing moment. A bead slips loose, falling silently to the floor, unnoticed by most but heavy with meaning. Nearby, a board member shifts uncomfortably, clearing his throat. A young librarian watches with wide eyes, biting her lip, sensing the shift in power. The room holds its breath, the tension thick and palpable. Amara begins, her voice steady but charged. "You said some stories don't belong, but stories are how we survive." The words hang in the air, a quiet challenge that reverberates beyond the walls. Mrs. Whitlock's fingers tremble as she tightens her grip on the purse, Her eyes dart away, the mask of control slipping. The pearls, once a symbol of authority, now feel like shackles. The camera lingers on the fallen bead, a silent testament to a crumbling reign. The front row's fury is quiet but undeniable, the old guard unraveling as a new story takes center stage. Amara stands at the center of the stage, the microphone just inches from her lips. The auditorium is hushed, every seat filled, the air charged with expectation. She glances at her grandmother's photo, paper-clipped to her notes, drawing strength from the memory. Her hands steady, she looks out at the crowd, catching Mrs. Whitlock's rigid posture in the front row. She begins, her voice low but unwavering. "You said some stories don't belong, but stories are how we survive." The words echo, sharp and clear, slicing through the quiet. A ripple runs through the audience. Some lean forward, others exchange glances, the weight of her statement settling over the room. A judge at the table leans in, pen hovering above the score sheet. "Why this topic?" he asks, his tone gentle, but probing. Amara's gaze sweeps the room, pausing on Mrs. Whitlock, then returning to the judge. "Because I'm tired of being erased," she replies, her voice barely above a whisper, but strong enough to reach every corner of the hall. The microphone hums softly, amplifying the stillness that follows. Amara's words hang in the air, unchallenged, undeniable. Mrs. Whitlock's fingers tighten around her purse, her jaw clenched, eyes glistening with something between anger and regret. A teacher in the second row wipes away a tear. The young librarian from earlier nods, her face lit with pride. The audience sits in electric silence, the impact of Amara's truth impossible to ignore. The moment stretches, the only sound is the faint buzz of the mic and the quiet breathing of those present. Amara stands tall, her story finally heard, the silence now a testament to her courage. The judge sits at the edge of the table, pen poised but unmoving. He leans forward, his eyes fixed on Amara, curiosity and respect mingling in his gaze. The auditorium holds its breath, the tension thick as he asks, "Why this topic?" His voice is gentle, but the question lands with weight. Amara's fingers tighten around her notes. She glances at Mrs. Whitlock, whose face is drawn and pale, then back at the judge. "Because I'm tired of being erased," Amara answers, her voice steady but raw. The words seem to reverberate off the walls, reaching every corner of the room. A hush falls over the audience, broken only by the soft shuffle of a student adjusting in their seat. The board chair, seated near the front, lowers his head, pen tapping nervously against his notepad. A teacher in the back wipes her eyes, moved by the honesty in Amara's reply. Mrs. Whitlock's hands tremble in her lap, her gaze fixed on the floor. The power she once held feels distant, replaced by a growing awareness that the room is no longer hers to command. The judge nods slowly, setting his pen down. "Thank you for your honesty," he says, voice thick with emotion. The other judges exchange glances, their expressions shifting from skepticism to admiration. Amara stands a little taller, the question having offered her a chance to speak her truth without fear. The room feels changed, the old boundaries dissolving, in the face of her courage. As Amara steps back from the microphone, the audience remains silent, not out of indifference, but out of respect for what's just been shared. The judge's simple question has shifted the entire room, opening a door that can't be closed again. Mrs. Whitlock rushes into the cramped bathroom, the door clicking shut behind her. The harsh fluorescent light flickers overhead, casting uneven shadows across her face. She leans heavily against the sink, fingers trembling as she reaches for a tissue. Her mascara streaks down her cheeks, dark trails marking the collapse of her carefully maintained composure. She stares into the cracked mirror, eyes wide and unblinking. The reflection shows a woman unraveling, the weight of the day pressing down like a physical force. "I was just following the usual steps," she whispers, voice barely audible, a fragile excuse that feels hollow even to her. Outside, the muffled sound of a janitor's mop echoes down the hallway, a quiet hymn contrasting with the chaos inside. Mrs. Whitlock's breath catches, her chest rising and falling unevenly. She wipes at her face, smearing the makeup further, a visual metaphor for the crumbling facade she's tried to uphold. Back in the main room, the library feels different. The usual hum of quiet conversations is replaced by a tense stillness. Staff members exchange furtive glances, some biting their lips, others avoiding eye contact. The power Mrs. Whitlock once wielded seems to be slipping through her fingers like sand. A young librarian, standing near the entrance, watches with a mixture of sympathy and hope. She bites her lip, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. The scene is a silent testament to change, old authority fading, new voices rising. Mrs. Whitlock takes a deep breath, straightens her blouse, and steps out of the bathroom. Her eyes meet the young librarian's for a brief moment, a flicker of acknowledgement passing between them. The mascara-streaked face is no longer a mask of control, but a portrait of vulnerability. The camera lingers on the cracked mirror, the fractured reflection a symbol of a broken system struggling to hold itself together. The room holds its breath, waiting for what comes next. The auditorium bursts into applause as Amara holds the gleaming trophy, the flashbulbs popping like distant thunder. Her hands are steady, the weight of the award a quiet affirmation of her journey. Cameras swivel, capturing every moment, every victorious smile. Mrs. Whitlock sits in the front row, her lips pressed into a thin line. The pearls around her neck glisten under the stage lights, but their shine feels cold, brittle. Her fingers clutch a small leather purse, knuckles pale, trembling ever so slightly. The applause fades into a low murmur as the camera cuts to Mrs. Whitlock's abandoned clutch bag beneath her seat. Inside, a shredded list of banned books spills out, the torn pages a silent testament to a crumbling reign. A board member shifts uncomfortably nearby, clearing his throat, eyes darting between the trophy and Mrs. Whitlock's faltering composure. A young librarian watches with wide eyes, biting her lip, sensing the shift in power. Amara's smile remains calm, her eyes reflecting a quiet strength. The trophy is more than metal, it's a symbol of change, a sledgehammer breaking through years of silence and exclusion. The room feels charged, the old order unraveling in the glow of flashbulbs and the steady gaze of a girl who refused to be erased. The library buzzes with the hum of phones and the glow of screens. Groups of teenagers gather in clusters, filming TikTok duets, their voices rising in unison as they recite lines from Amara's essay. Laughter and applause ripple through the aisles, a chorus of youthful defiance and hope. In the staff lounge, teachers debate the essay's impact. Some read passages aloud, their voices tinged with disbelief at the backlash it has sparked. Others nod quietly, sharing stories of their own struggles to introduce diverse books into classrooms. The conversation spills into emails and meetings, a growing wave of awareness. A local bookstore downtown sets up a display of banned titles, each book adorned with a bright, leather-reed sticker. Patrons pause, fingers tracing the spines of books they've never seen before. The library's atmosphere shifts. Whispers turn to open discussions, students recommend books to one another, and the old rules feel suddenly outdated. Mrs. Whitlock stands behind the circulation desk, her expression tight as she watches the change unfold. A parent approaches, quietly asking where to find the books from the trending hashtag. Mrs. Whitlock's reply is clipped, her jaw clenched, but the parent moves on, undeterred, scanning the shelves for stories once hidden. As the day winds down, Mrs. Whitlock sits alone at her desk. The hum of conversation and the ping of notifications fill the space around her. The system she once controlled is slipping away, replaced by a movement that grows louder with every post, every shared story, every voice refusing to be silenced. The evening light filters through the library windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Outside, the hum of the city fades into a quiet backdrop as the library prepares to close. Inside, workmen move quietly, their footsteps soft on the carpet as they approach Mrs. Whitlock's desk. The old nameplate, once a symbol of authority, is carefully pried loose. The letters Eleanor Whitlock gleam faintly in the fading light. Before the plaque cracks and falls to the floor, the sound sharp in the stillness. Beads from a broken pearl necklace scatter nearby, rolling like tiny echoes of a fading rain. Amara walks past, her silhouette framed by the doorway. Her shadow stretches long, crossing over the shattered nameplate. She pauses, her gaze steady and calm, a quiet witness to the shift in power. The camera lingers on her face, the soft determination in her eyes speaking volumes. In the background, a young librarian watches the scene unfold, her hands clasped tightly, a hopeful smile tugging at her lips. The air is thick with unspoken change, the weight of years of exclusion beginning to lift. Mrs. Whitlock's desk sits empty, papers neatly stacked but untouched. The chair is pushed in, the space once filled with control now a silent monument to a crumbling system. The camera pans to the scattered beads, then to the broken nameplate, then back to Amara's steady figure. The scene closes on the quiet sound of the library door closing, a soft click that signals the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. Morning light spills across the library's main room, illuminating Mrs. Whitlock's now vacant desk. The chair sits perfectly still, pushed in and untouched, a thin layer of dust settling on its armrests. No nameplate, no scattered papers, just absence, heavy and unmistakable. A janitor moves quietly through the space, pausing to drop a tattered, banned books list into the recycling bin. The paper lands with a soft rustle, its authority gone. Staff members pass by, some with relief, others with a thoughtful glance at the empty chair. No one lingers. The power once centered here has dissolved. A young librarian stops, fingertips brushing the disk's surface. She hesitates, then places a small stack of new books, voices once excluded, where the old paperwork used to be. The gesture is simple, but loaded, a quiet act of reclamation. In the reading area, students whisper about the changes, their voices low but hopeful. The library feels different now, lighter, more open, as if the walls themselves are breathing easier. The empty chair is no longer a seat of control, but a silent reminder of what's been lost and what's possible. Amara enters, her steps steady. She glances at the desk, then at the shelves now filled with stories that reflect her world. The emptiness left behind is not just an ending, it's an invitation for something new to take root. The camera lingers on the empty chair, the dust, motes swirling in the sunlight. The scene closes with the faint sound of pages turning, a gentle promise that stories, once erased, are finding their way back. Sunlight streams through the tall library windows, casting golden patterns across the floor. Amara stands in the new Diverse Voices section, her trophy tucked under one arm. She carefully places it on the shelf beside a row of books by authors who once had no place here. The metal gleams, catching the light and drawing admiring glances from students passing by. A young girl pauses, drawn to a copy of Brown Girl Dreaming. She opens the cover and finds Amara's essay tucked inside, the first line written in bold pencil, "Stories are weapons." Her eyes widen, curiosity blooming into inspiration. She hugs the book to her chest, feeling seen in a way she never has before. Nearby, a librarian arranges new arrivals, her movements gentle and deliberate. She smiles at Amara, a silent acknowledgement of the work it took to bring these stories to the shelves. The library hums with quiet energy, students sharing recommendations, teachers guiding discussions, the air alive with possibility. Amara glances at her grandmother's photo, now framed on the wall above the section. The image radiates warmth and pride, a reminder of the roots that made this moment possible. Amara's heart swells with gratitude and hope, knowing that her fight wasn't just for herself, but for every reader who will come after. As the camera pulls back, the library is filled with the soft sound of turning pages and the low murmur of voices discovering new worlds. The final frame lingers on the first line of Amara's essay, a promise that stories, once silenced, will continue to multiply, lighting the way forward for generations. Mrs. Whitlock moves slowly through the aisles of a small bookstore, the fluorescent lights casting a dim glow on the clearance section. Her shoulders are hunched, the weight of recent events pressing down on her like an invisible shroud. She avoids eye contact with the few customers browsing nearby, her steps hesitant and uncertain. The once proud librarian, now a shadow of her former self, lingers by a stack of discounted classics. Her fingers brush over the worn spines, tracing titles she once dismissed without a second thought. Each book feels like a ghost of the stories she tried to keep hidden. A young woman nearby glances at Mrs. Whitlock, offering a tentative smile that goes unanswered. The librarian's eyes flicker with a mix of regret and resignation. She picks up a battered copy of a novel, flipping through the pages with a slow, deliberate motion, as if searching for a way back to a time before the walls closed in. The hum of the store is punctuated by the soft rustle of pages and the distant murmur of conversation. Mrs. Whitlock's breath catches as she pauses, leaning against a shelf for support. Her gaze drifts to the floor, where a small pile of discarded bookmarks lies forgotten. She straightens, smoothing the creases in her blouse, but the stiffness in her movements betrays her inner turmoil. The world outside moves on, but inside, this quiet corner, the price of exclusion is paid in silence and solitude. The camera lingers on her face, capturing the subtle tremor in her lips and the flicker of tears she quickly blinks away. The scene fades with the soft click of the bookstore door closing behind her, a quiet farewell to a chapter that has ended. The library is alive with anticipation, sunlight streaming through the windows and casting hopeful patterns on the polished floor. Students, teachers, and community members gather around a freshly decorated archway, cameras poised and voices hushed in excitement. At the center stands Amara, hands trembling as she grips the bright red ribbon stretched across the entrance to the new Diverse Voices section. A librarian hands her a pair of silver scissors, their weight cool and reassuring in her palm. Amara glances at her mother in the crowd, who nods with pride and encouragement. The air is thick with expectation, every eye fixed on the moment that will mark a new beginning for the library and its readers. With a deep breath, Amara lifts the scissors and snips the ribbon. The cut is clean, the sound sharp and satisfying. Applause erupts, echoing off the high ceilings. Students rush forward, eager to explore shelves now filled with stories that reflect their lives and dreams. Teachers guide them, pointing out books by authors who were once excluded, their voices finally given space to be heard. Amara steps aside, watching as the crowd moves through the new section. The librarian who handed her the scissors places a gentle hand on her shoulder, whispering, "You did this." Amara smiles, her quiet dignity shining brighter than any spotlight. The camera pans over the shelves, lingering on covers both familiar and new. The library feels transformed, no longer a gatekeeper, but a place where every story matters. The ribbon's two halves rest on the floor, a symbol of barriers cut and possibilities opened. As the celebration continues, Amara stands tall, knowing this chapter is only the beginning of a larger story. The school hallways buzz with a new energy as teachers gather in classrooms, their voices low but filled with purpose. Amara's essay, once dismissed, now echoes through lesson plans and discussions. Teachers read aloud, their tones shifting from hesitant to inspired, sharing passages that challenge old narratives. Students listen intently, some with tears glistening, others nodding with pride. The words spark debates, questions, and a hunger for stories that reflect their own experiences. The curriculum is no longer a static list, but a living conversation, reshaping what it means to learn and belong. In a teacher's lounge, a veteran educator flips through the pages of Amara's essay, her eyes softening. "I never realized how much we were missing," she admits quietly. A younger teacher nods, adding, "It's time we make space for every voice." Across the school, classrooms display posters of diverse authors, and students recommend books to one another, their excitement palpable. The old barriers crumble slowly, replaced by a mosaic of stories that celebrate difference and resilience. Amara walks the halls, her steps steady, a quiet smile playing on her lips. She watches as her words take root, knowing the fight for representation is far from over, but feeling the weight of progress in every classroom. The scene closes on a group of students gathered around a table, sharing books and stories, their laughter and voices blending into a hopeful chorus. The future is being written here, one lesson at a time. The library is quiet, sunlight streaming through tall windows and warming the reading tables. Amara stands near the circulation desk, her eyes widening as Ms. Elena Patel, the new librarian, approaches with a carefully wrapped package. The room seems to pause as Ms. Patel places the bundle in Amara's hands. Amara unwraps it slowly, revealing a first-edition copy of Toni Morrison's Beloved. Her breath catches, fingertips trembling, as she traces the embossed letters on the cover. Miss Patel smiles, her voice gentle. "This belongs to someone who understands the power of stories," she says. "We're building something new here, because of you." A few students gather nearby, curiosity lighting their faces. Amara holds the book close, feeling the weight of its history and the promise of its future. She glances at Miss Patel, gratitude and awe mingling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Miss Patel nods, her expression proud and hopeful. "You're part of this legacy now. Pass it on. The moment is intimate but profound." A torch passed from one guardian of stories to another. The library, once a place of exclusion, now feels like a sanctuary for voices long denied. Amara finds a quiet corner, opening the book and reading the first lines. The words settle over her like a blessing, connecting her to generations of writers, readers, and dreamers. The gift is more than a book. It's a promise that her fight and her story will endure. As the camera pulls back, the scene glows with possibility, a new chapter written in hands that will never let it be erased. The library feels transformed as sunlight pours over rows of books by Black and marginalized authors, their covers vibrant against the once monochrome shelves. Patrons pause, drawn to titles they've never seen before, memoirs, poetry, and novels that had been missing for far too long. Each new edition is a quiet act of defiance against years of exclusion. A group of students gathers near the display, voices low but excited as they share recommendations and discoveries. One girl points out a book she's been searching for, her friend's eyes lighting up in recognition. Nearby, a teacher guides a small group through stories of resilience and hope, her voice steady and warm. The atmosphere is different now, no longer heavy with unspoken rules, but alive with possibility. Whispered conversations bloom between strangers, the old hush of the library replaced by a gentle buzz of curiosity and connection. Even the staff move differently, their steps lighter as they shelve new arrivals and answer questions with genuine enthusiasm. Amara stands near the end of an aisle, watching as her classmates and neighbors explore the expanded collection. She feels a sense of pride and relief, knowing that the fight for representation has changed not just the shelves, but the spirit of the place itself. The camera lingers on a shelf labeled Diverse Voices, the spines of books standing tall like a chorus. The library is no longer a gatekeeper, it's a garden, finally giving space for every story to grow. The library's main room is quiet, the morning sun casting long shadows across Mrs. Whitlock's old desk. The chair is pushed in, untouched, a thin layer of dust gathering on its surface. No nameplate, no stacks of paperwork, just emptiness, heavy and unmistakable. Staff members pass by, some pausing for a moment, others moving on with a quiet sense of relief. The space that once commanded attention now feels hollow, a silent reminder of authority that has faded away. A young librarian stops, fingertips brushing the desktop. She hesitates, then sets down a stack of new books, stories once denied a place here, before moving on. In a corner, a janitor sweeps up a stray pearl, lost from a necklace that no longer holds power. The gesture is small, but it marks the end of an era. The desk, once a symbol of control, is now just furniture, stripped of meaning, waiting for a new story to begin. Amara enters the room, her gaze lingering on the empty chair. She stands for a moment, letting the weight of what's changed settle in. The emptiness is both an ending and a warning. Silence and exclusion leave nothing behind but dust and memories. The camera lingers on the desk, the morning light illuminating the space where decisions were once made. The scene closes with the sound of pages turning, a gentle promise that new voices will fill the void left behind. Amara's baby sister sits cross-legged on the colorful carpet of the rebuilt library, her small hands carefully turning the pages of To Kill a Mockingbird. Her eyes are wide with wonder, absorbing the story with a quiet intensity that speaks of new beginnings. The sunlight filters through the tall windows, casting warm patterns on the shelves filled with books that once had no place here. Amara watches from a distance, a soft smile touching her lips. The fight she began was never just for herself. It was for every child who would come after, for every voice waiting to be heard. The library, once a battleground, now hums with the gentle energy of discovery and inclusion. Nearby, a group of students gather around a table, sharing stories and recommendations. Their laughter and voices blend into a hopeful chorus, a testament to the power of representation and the resilience of those who refuse to be silenced. The camera lingers on the baby sister's face, her expression open and curious. Amara's voiceover breaks the quiet. Stories don't end, they multiply. The scene closes with the soft rustle of pages turning and the warm glow of a library alive with possibility, a place where every story matters and every reader belongs. The shelves, once sparse and silent, now overflow with voices from every background. Each book is a victory, a testament to the battles fought and won. The air is thick with the scent of paper and hope, a reminder that change is not just possible, but inevitable. Amara's sister pauses, looking up from her book to watch a librarian gently guide a young boy to a shelf filled with stories about heroes who look like him. The moment is small, but profound, a quiet revolution unfolding in the everyday. Amara's gaze softens as she sees the next generation stepping into a world reshaped by courage and persistence. The library is no longer a place of exclusion, but a sanctuary where every child can find themselves reflected in the pages. The camera pulls back slowly, capturing the vibrant life of the library, the chatter, the turning pages, the shared smiles. The legacy of one girl's fight is now a chorus of many voices, echoing through the halls and into the future. Sunlight streams through the tall library windows, casting golden patterns across the floor. Amara arranges her grandmother's photo beside the gleaming trophy, the light catching the edges and illuminating the quiet pride in her eyes. The room hums softly with the sound of pages turning and whispered conversations, a sanctuary reborn. Her voice breaks the gentle murmur, calm, and certain stories don't end. They multiply. The camera pans slowly across the shelves, now filled with books by authors once silenced, their spines standing tall like a chorus of voices finally heard. Students gather in small groups, sharing recommendations, their faces alight with discovery and hope. Amara watches from a distance, her smile soft but full of resolve. The fight she began was never just heard. It was for every reader who will come after, every story waiting to be told. A young librarian places a new book on the shelf, her hands steady and deliberate. Nearby, a child opens a book, eyes wide with wonder, fingers tracing the words that once seemed out of reach. The camera lingers on the photo of Amara's grandmother beneath the mango tree, roots deep and branches reaching, a symbol of resilience and legacy. The scene fades with the warm glow of the library, alive with possibility and promise. The legacy is clear. Stories, once silenced, will continue to echo, lighting the way forward for generations.